Everyone, and welcome back. In this week's video I am going to cover my handstand training specifically. First of all, I am going to recap the progress that I have made so far in 2023, and then I'm going to share with you the current training routine that I'll be using for the next few weeks. I've decided not to cover handstand warm-ups in this video because the ones that I'm using are actually really generic, and there are already a ton of excellent resources out there. Having said that, once I've made more progress, I think I probably will put together a video on the handstand warm-ups that I have used at different parts of the journey, and I'll share my thoughts on which I think are most useful and most relevant. So let's get right into it. There are three ways in which I will be measuring my progress with a handstand. Number one is how comfortable I feel whilst inverted, i.e. can I think about something else other than the handstand, or could I perhaps speak? Number two is going to be the length of time that I can hold the handstand for. And finally, number three is going to be the alignment that I can achieve or can't achieve whilst in a handstand. First of these is a little subjective, but I think it's really important and it's often really underappreciated. The goal of any skill, or at least the goal that I have for performing any skill, is to be able to do it effortlessly and make it comfortable and enjoyable. I know I've definitely reached a stage where I feel as if I can shift my awareness to different body parts while I'm inverted. And I also don't feel as if I have to focus as if my life depends on me being upside down, which is quite nice, but it's not that easy to measure. The other two, however, are great for tracking progress as there is a really simple measure that you can use for each. First of all, is just simply the longest time that you can hold yourself upside down in a handstand. The following clips are the first 3 times that I have passed the 30-second mark this year. Prior to that, my personal best was 28 seconds with another few attempts that had passed the 20-second mark, but in all honesty, my average best hold throughout January was a little over 15 seconds. Now, all 3 of these holds came within the space of a week, and I think this is a little bit like the 4-minute mile. As soon as it's been achieved once, the subsequent successes are just inevitable, and it is purely a case of when they will happen again. Now, I've mentioned previously in an earlier video that I like to hold a certain standard for keeping myself honest when trying to acquire new skills, and I do this by considering something achieved only when I've done it at least 3 times. So in this scenario, I'm going to take the shortest of these 3 holds, which is 31 seconds, and I'm going to consider that my current level. And I do this because I'm particularly keen to not get ahead of myself. When it comes to handstand training, without question, it is more akin to a marathon as opposed to a sprint. So I'm more than happy just to be patient when it comes to achieving the goals I've set myself. I've also had a decent amount of success with the other measure, which is my alignment whilst in a handstand. It's worth me pointing out that handstands which are performed outside of alignment, so typically the banana back to handstand, are not necessarily wrong, it's just a different way of performing the skill. Having said that, it does appear that it is particularly important to work on straightening the line of the handstand over time and attempting to work towards a gymnastic style handstand, which is particularly straight, as my understanding from others who have taught me this is that it's really important to have a good, solid, straight handstand before approaching some of the high-level skills, and that it just gives you a much better foundation for working towards those. So in these 3 clips, I think you can see a significant difference between the first and the third when considering the alignment that I'm able to get into. I'm finding it easier and easier to kick up to a better position right away, and more importantly, as you can see really clearly in the clip on the right, I'm now able to straighten myself reasonably well whilst inverted, which for me is a massive success, which I'm really pleased about. So I put the majority of my success with this down to, and there's really no other way to put it, just a relentless use of the wall-facing handstand. I have spent countless hours with my nose to the wall since the beginning of this year, and I think this sheer volume of time has allowed me to constantly refine and tinker with both my alignment and the adjustments that I can make without having to spend time or energy on kicking up or maintaining balance. So now let's have a look at the routine that I have designed around the goals, which are based on the 3 measures which I mentioned previously. To work on alignment, I have started incorporating some mobility and flexibility drills at the beginning of each handstand session with the ultimate aim of improving my line. This is a particularly tight spot for me, but in all honesty, as far as I can tell, it's a tight spot for everyone other than professional hand balancers, so it seems like it's a pretty good investment of time. So the first drill is the butcher's block, otherwise known as the lat tri insertion stretch due to the area that it targets. The goal here is to use the assistance of gravity to open the shoulder angle while maintaining a posteriorly tilted pelvis, i.e. a tucked tailbone. And you can regulate the intensity of the stretch in two ways. Firstly, by moving the knees progressively further away from the support that your arms rest on, and secondly, by pushing into the support with your elbows and actively trying to pull your armpits down to the ground, without arching your back. I'm performing this with a stick so I can ensure my hands are slightly wider than shoulder width, which maintains external rotation in the glenohumeral joint, and also by pulling the stick behind your neck, it keeps the triceps stretched. So this I am performing as a superset with an active shoulder flexion drill. The idea being that the butcher's block will help to open up the joint, and this drill will strengthen it over an ever increasing range of motion. Once again, I'm using a stick for this, with the hands approximately shoulder width apart, and this time I'm resisting the line of gravity by raising the stick as high as I can. I'm using a bench to sit on so that I'm perpendicular to the ground, therefore increasing the effect of gravity at a specific point in the action. This also ensures that the lumbar spine cannot arch the way it would if you're standing. The extra benefit of having something to hold is the effect that irradiation has on the neighbouring muscle groups. So I'm performing these two exercises for a total of 3 sets. The butcher's block is a 30-second hold, and the active shoulder flexion drill is performed as 5 reps with a 5 to 10 second hold at the top of the last rep. Next up, you guessed it, once again, it's my best friend, the wall-facing handstand. With this drill, I'm also performing 3 sets of 30 seconds, but I will cut it short if I find that I can get into what feels like decent alignment and balance without too much trouble. This is followed by a back to wall handstand, and again, which will be up to 3 sets of 60 seconds or until I feel ready to move on. The goal with these two drills is to spend the minimum amount of time required to calibrate the inverted position to feel comfortable before I move on to freestanding. I really don't want to spend unnecessary energy, but instead save it for the freestanding practice. However, I do find that a bit of focused preparation goes a really long way in guaranteeing that the freestanding handstands will be successful. Finally, I get to have a bit more fun when I move on to the freestanding practice, and the aim here is to accumulate at least 60 seconds of balance time per day with as many successful kick-ups as possible. While I continue to work towards a better basic handstand, I've got one eye on the future, so I'm incorporating a couple of strength-based drills. I'm definitely a believer that increasing your capacity in all of the basic drills is extremely helpful, but I'm not sure it's the best use of time. So instead, I'm actually working to increase my technical capability elsewhere, with the idea being that the physiological benefits will translate to a greater capacity in the other basic drills. I'm using 2 drills for this, and the first is a wall-facing handstand incorporating shoulder taps, as this seems to be an excellent drill for building both strength and stability on one arm. The second drill I'm using is a type of lean press, where I'm closing the shoulder angle ever so slightly and then actively pushing back into a straight line position by using the shoulders and the traps to do this, and I'm also ensuring that my feet don't come off the wall. So that is it, my current handstand training routine, which I will lay out for everyone in the description below. I am really excited to see the progress that I'm going to make with this program in the coming weeks, and I will be detailing that in the next episode of Handstand Diaries. To ensure you don't miss it, remember to click subscribe and please hit the thumbs up on this video to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy training.